Hi, everybody. We have special guests today. We've talked about this. It's exciting. Someone is primarying Nancy Pelosi, and we have him on with us right now. He is a lawyer. He's been a lawyer for 46 years. This is his first time ever running for political office. He's taken the challenge laid down by Bernie Sanders to go ahead and get involved in politics. He's a big Bernie Sanders supporter. He's trying to he is primarying Nancy Pelosi. So please welcome our guest, Stephen Jaffe. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity.
You're very welcome. Now tell me, what makes you want to primary Nancy Pelosi? She seems like a good liberal. She's against abortion, right?
She calls herself a liberal. I guess it depends on how you define the word. To my way of definition, she's more of a moderate than she is a liberal, based on her positions and from where she gets her support. I am much more progressive, I believe, than she is, and I think my positions are much more reflective of the electorate here in San Francisco, where she needs to be elected.
So what would be is there one big issue you think that sticks out, or is it a bunch of things, or how would you be different?
Well, there's a lot of things on which we differ, but you're right. There is one big issue, I think, which has brought this to the forefront, and that, of course, is healthcare coverage. Ms. Pelosi has made it clear she is opposed to single-payer healthcare, and I feel very strongly that that is the only rational solution to the problem and the crisis we're now facing. It's time for the United States to join the rest of the civilized world and provide for the universal health care of all its residents.
Now, universal health care, Medicare for all. President Trump just was meeting with the Australian prime minister. Told him, yes, it's you have a better health care system than the United States does. So, this is a healthcare system that's just taken for granted by the rest of the Western world. Why do you think it's such it seems to be a bridge too far, even for people like Nancy Pelosi, who calls herself a liberal? Why do you think people like Nancy Pelosi think it's too much for the United States to do?
There's a very simple answer to that question. And as the answer is to many questions like that are asked, the answer is money. If you can imagine three tennis balls sitting in front of you on the table, and over one tennis ball on one side, let's call healthcare providers, doctors, hospitals, pharmacies, everybody, ambulances, everybody that provides any kind of healthcare. And the tennis ball on the other side are healthcare consumers, which is really all of us, patients. Okay? The idea is to get the provision, what the healthcare providers are providing, delivered to the consumers, right? Right. I'll answer my own question. Sitting in between those two tennis balls is a third one, and that's the elephant in the room. That is the insurance industry, and much of it is for-profit insurance industries, and it sucks money, all the money that should be flowing and the benefits should be flowing from the providers to the consumers. It's sucking the money out. So what does that have to do with Nancy Pelosi? She gets a great deal of her support from those insurance companies, from big pharma, and from entities which have a stake in the perpetuation of the status quo. And so do a lot of the other legislators who vote to keep things as they are. So, I mean, that's my short answer. Ms. Pelosi is often described as a epic fundraiser for the Democratic Party, and I concede she certainly raises a lot of money, but that's only half the question. Where does she get it from? She gets it from these entities, these big corporate entities, banks, insurance companies, healthcare companies, big farm. So.
And Stephen, do you think that the people? Why do you think the people in the Democratic Party? I mean, the people who follow Bernie understand what you're talking about, but why do you think the rest of the people in the Democratic Party are so slow to wake up to this? In fact, just last week we saw almost everybody to the right of Bernie in the Democratic Party was defending Barack Obama taking $400,000 from a bank. why do you think that the regular Democratic Party, regular Democratic voter is prone to, I don't know, defend that kind of thing instead of be outraged by it?
That's a good question. And I think as you're asking it, I think the answer is that I don't think a lot of people make the connection between the flow of money and how it influences the politics of our country, and to the degree and extent to which it influences it. I think that if it were to be shown how there was a connection between the entities which are making contributions and the votes of legislators, I think maybe the light would start to go on. But right now, I think there's a disconnect between those two things.
I do think that single payer issue is making some people wake up to the corruption inside the Democratic Party. You know, when Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein was confronted by constituents asking why they will not support single payer, they come back with right-wing talking points.
That's right, and very long-winded, equivocal, and evasive answers. In fact, the last time she was publicly asked that question, I believe, was March 25th when she was doing a town hall out here in San Francisco at Balboa High School. And she was asked that question, and she answered it with a long-winded answer. And then she said, Jimmy, something very strange, which I'm still scratching my head over. She said, actually, you know, Obamacare, because she was defending Obamacare, she said, actually, Obamacare is to the left of single-payer health care. Yes, that was my reaction. I'm looking at my own reaction watching you. That makes no sense, and it really is a cause for concern that Ms. Pelosi doesn't have a real grasp on the issue at hand.
Well, I think she has a grasp on the issue at hand. I think it's like that Upton Sinclair quote. It's hard to get a man to understand a problem when his salary depends on him not understanding it. And so she's pretending, her and Dianne Feinstein and all the other corporate Democrats are trying to pretend that they don't understand the issue. They're trying to gaslight us and make us think the issue is something else. For instance, Dianne Feinstein was asked that question about single payer. Her response was, well, if single payer means a complete government takeover of healthcare, I'm not there. So they're pretending not to understand what Medicare for all means. They're pretending that's called gaslighting. And so what the corporate Democrats are doing is gaslighting people to their left, the actual progressives, the actual people who want to institute policies at the behest of the people instead of their corporate donors. They're gaslighting them to the left. Now, people are trying to make you sound like you're crazy. The LA Times article, very, very dismissive of you and wanting to make you sound like you're fringe. But what is fringe about wanting to get corruption out of a political party?
Absolutely nothing. And I just posted something on my Facebook page and web page, which is apparently getting a lot of attention. It was very 2 or 3 sentences. I said, we are all socialists. Medicare, Medicaid,
Social Security.
Social Security, the military, police departments, fire departments, they are all socialist programs. Socialism is nothing more than a pooling of money for the common good of the people. Those are all socialist programs. Socialist has been stained with a very bad name, and there's nothing wrong with it. It is not communism. It is not dictatorship. It's not even a political statement.
Right. So people don't realize the interstate highway system is socialism. People don't realize libraries are socialism. The fire department, cops, that's all socialism. So we have a mixture of capitalism and socialism in America, and there is no such thing as a free market. Markets are regulated and invented by men who have stuff to sell, and they invent markets with rules to protect themselves, not to protect you. And people don't understand that.
And to those out there who are trying to portray me as some kind of a fringe socialist, I do believe there are legitimate places for capitalist markets. For example, I live in Northern California, near Silicon Valley. Entrepreneurs need incentive to do what they do. And the only way to really give them incentive is say, look, go invent the next microchip or cell phone, and we'll reward you with the benefits of having done so. That's a legitimate place for it. But when it comes to serving the needs of the people through the government, that is an appropriate place for the government to do it better. We already have the machinery in place. Dianne Feinstein said that means the government takeover of healthcare. Well, you know what? We're halfway there already with Medicare and Medicaid, the Veterans Administration. I can go on and on. So we're halfway there already. There's no reason not to close the circle and fix it.
So what do you think? Do you think? I mean, people on the left are pretty done with the Democratic Party. I mean, people who didn't support Hillary in the primary, people who supported Bernie are trying to find a reason to vote for the Democratic Party. Now, if you win, there would be a reason because you're an actual progressive. And what do you think your chances are of knocking off Nancy Pelosi? The last time there was an election, right now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, there was someone who ran against her as an independent, and they garnered somewhere close to 20% of the vote. Is that true?
That is correct. That person's name is Preston Pekas. Preston Pekas has endorsed me in this election. Why should they vote Democrat? Well, I'll draw on I'm big on stories and analogies. If you imagine that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are two big buses and competitors are little underpowered cars. You know, you want to ride in the big powerful bus if you can. The problem is the Democratic bus is broken. The engine's shot, the seats are terrible, but the fact is if it can be fixed up, it is still the best vehicle to accomplish the changes that need to be done. I think my running as a Democrat hopefully will help begin that. There's a tremendous wave of progressivism throughout the country, and hopefully most of the progressives will try and sign on as Democrats and fix the party. That's my goal.
So very much, I was speaking with Crystal Ball, who used to be an MSNBC host, and she's written a book about how people need to hijack the Democratic Party. And I asked her, well, how do you do that? And she said, well, very much like the Republican Party, because I was more of a draft Bernie guy. I still think that that's a great option, but she was making the case that just like the Republicans hijacked the grassroots, the Tea Party hijacked the Republican Party, that the progressives can and should do the same thing with the Democratic Party. I don't think people realize how difficult it is to take over the Democratic Party. Just here in California, where everybody thought we voted for our Democratic Party representatives, turns out that was just a third of the people who get to vote in the California Democratic Convention. So there's all these waves that the insiders put in our way. So a small group of people who are a minority can still hold power. That's kind of what's happening in the Democratic Party right now. So Go ahead.
You're bringing up one of my other important points having to do with Ms. Pelosi, and that is I am for the abolition of superdelegates. I think they are undemocratic, both a big D and a little d, and I think they are one of the devices that the Pelosi, Wasserman Schultz, Clinton faction of the party use to hold on to their power and strength, and they've got to go, because otherwise, what are the primaries for? What are the primaries for? The Democratic Party lawyers are now arguing a couple of days ago, we've got the right to fix the primaries.
Yes.
Why hold the primaries? If that's the case, why bother to hold the primaries? A person goes out and votes, and then somebody in a back room cancels that vote with some backroom deal. People have a right to have a reasonable expectation that their votes will count. So that's why I'm for the abolition of superdelegates.
I'm with you on that. It's just weird. The Democratic Party keeps moving to the right. They lost to Donald Trump. They're wiped out at every level of government, the Congress, the Senate, the White House, state governments, governorships. They're wiped out from coast to coast after they got in bed with big business, military-industrial complex, Wall Street, and big pharma in the 90s. That's what Bill Clinton and Al Gore did, and people don't really realize that's what happened. And that's when the turn of the Democratic Party happened. So now we're trying to take it back and give it back to the people and take it back from Wall Street, right? Because you can't serve Wall Street and serve workers. Those are two diametrically opposed ideas. So listen, Stephen, I really appreciate you taking time for us, and I really, if your jumping off point is at least 20% of the vote, I'm going to say it's even more than that. And where we wish you all the best, because if the Democrats can't take over their party from people like Nancy Pelosi, there's no point to Nancy Pelosi. Why does she even want to be a leader? Because she just wants to serve her corporate donors. If she's not for single payer, or if she's not for free college, she's not for splitting the Democratic Party from Wall Street and Big Pharma and Silicon Valley. I mean, these are the people who are natural Republicans. Democrats are supposed to be blue collar people, students, people like that. So what can people do to help if they want to help you in this primary?
Well, obviously at this stage, unfortunately, until someone repeals Citizens United and we have something akin to government finance campaigns, obviously the fuel that needs to get us running are contributions. Let me tell you something that's very interesting. I've gotten very gratifying number of contributions since I started, which is less than 3 weeks ago. But you know what, Jimmy? Most of them are from out of state. What does that tell you? That tells you that this election is kind of a national referendum on who's going to control the National Democratic Party in the future. It tells you it's not about me as much as I would like to say everyone's giving this money because I'm a terrific guy. It's not because of that. It's because people don't like Ms. Pelosi where she is right now. So can I say my website address?
Please do.
Yes, it's Jaffe, Jaffe, the number 4, Congress.com.
Okay, Jaffe4Congress.com. And are you hooked up with anybody? Have the Justice Democrats reached out to you, or Brand New Congress, or any of those organizations?
I'm talking to a number of organizations. I guess the primary one so far has been the Bernie-crats here in Northern California, who've been supportive.
Bernie-crats, they're called?
Yes.
And what about the Indivisible? Have you heard from them?
I have. I believe I've talked to a couple of them individually. I haven't had a formal connection with them yet. But you got to remember, there's 13 months to go here.
Okay.
And this is a marathon, not a sprint. So I have to very carefully just progress. And I think the time is on my. You asked me how am I going to win this? I think time is one of the best things, because lots of things are going to happen between now and June of 2018. And hopefully those will be in my favor.
Okay, well, we'll help you get the word out. We're always here to help progressives, and we like the idea of primary and corporate Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, who voted to expand the surveillance state. She likes the Patriot Act. She's against single payer. She didn't want to prosecute people for war crimes and torture. So there's lots of, it's time, right? We need to break up the big bank. Well, let me ask you before I let you go. Bernie used to talk about breaking up the big bank. So did Barack Obama. So did everybody, until they got control of government, and then they stopped. What do you think about breaking up the big banks?
Well, I think we should never be in a position where somebody has to say it's too big to fail. We should never make our economy and our country so dependent on these kinds of private institutions where they pretty much know they're insulated from consequences for whatever they do. That's how we got into the mess in the first place. So I think to the extent breaking up needs to occur to prevent that situation from reoccurring, then I would be in favor of that.
Okay, I think we need to have the idea of moral hazard reintroduced to banking.
Yes. Well, you don't hear the word moral and banking together very much.
No, not so. Hey, let me ask you, what kind of a lawyer? Now, you practiced law for 46 years. What kind of law did you practice?
I'm an employment law lawyer. I represent employees only, people who are been discriminated or had problems in the workplace, class-based discrimination of all the protected classes: age, race, gender, religion, nationality, ethnicity, disability, you know the list, sexual orientation, and so on. And I also do another kind of case, which is a little more esoteric, called federal false claims cases, which is an attempt to collect for the government people who have defrauded the government. It's another kind of whistleblower case. But basically, I'm an employment law lawyer representing employees. I'm a man of the people, I hope, or I try to be.
All right. Well, regular Clarence Darrow running against Nancy Pelosi. We wish you all the luck. Stephen Jaffe, go to JaffeForCongress.com if you want to help, donate, or whatever you want to do. Volunteer. Jaffe for Congress. That's Jaffe. for Congress, correct? Did I spell it correctly?
Yes, with the number 4, not the word 4.
Yes, the number 4, correct. All right, we'll put a link underneath this video. Stephen, thanks for talking with us, and if you ever need to come back on, let us know.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it again.
Okay, return the government back to the people. The next live Jimmy Dore show in Burbank, California is May 22nd. May 22nd, that's a Monday night, live in Burbank, California. Special guests, a great time. Get your tickets right there.